Okay, welcome back everyone. Our second session is titled Peaceful Unification of the Korean Peninsula, Collaborative Efforts. Our mediator for this session is Dr. Leonid Petrov, Visiting Fellow in the School of Culture, History and Language at the Australian National University and the Dean of Business and Management of International College of Management. Our panelists of the second session are Dr. Yoon Young Cho, Professor of International Politics at Chungang University, Dr. Bronwyn Dalton, Head of Department of Management, Director of the Masters of Not-for-Profit and Social Enterprise Program at the University of Technology, Sydney, Ms. Ellie Wang, who is not here today, and Councillor Daniel Han, Deputy Mayor and City of Ryde Councillor, and a PUAC Australia chapter member and PUAC member in the Global Strategy Special Committee. Please join me in welcoming our panelists.
Thank you for the introduction. Welcome to the guests. 여러분, 반갑습니다. 아까 소개받은 레오니드 프로그램입니다. I would like to thank the Peaceful Unification Advisory Council for this wonderful opportunity to meet all colleagues and new friends and talk about things Korean, North and South. This panel today is entitled The Peaceful Unification of Korean Peninsula, Collaborative Efforts. And as we saw it in the first introductory section of this wonderful event, we saw the first session talking about difficult times. We really live in a turmoil of the new Cold War. We are experiencing significant shifts in geopolitics, in strategic defense structures in Europe, in Asia. We live in a relatively peaceful part of the world in Asia Pacific. And I think that this panel is really well represented here by participants from Northeast Asia, personally, I grew up in Russia, in the Soviet Union. I lived in the USSR until it collapsed in 1991. The expectations were that the same would happen basically everywhere. Eastern Europe, Berlin Wall collapsed. We expected that North Korea will democratize, will become a peaceful nation, unification would happen. It was all expectation of 1991, and we're still already 30 years on, 33 years on, and it hasn't happened. And we see now the resurrection of Cold War politics and Cold War mentality. We just see the North Korean dictator meeting with the Russian dictator. We've seen major change in Eastern European front. The front line that what happens in Ukraine is very similar to what happened 70 years ago, more than 70 years ago, the Korean War, which has never happened, never finished. And the things with the discussion of the human rights, which our colleague just presented half an hour ago, also perhaps should be seen through the prism of the continuing war, where war is happening, ugly things happen, violation of human rights, starvation, extrajudicial killings, and many other things. So the focus of this panel is on the inter-Korean relations. And I believe that the guests which we have today, presenters, will give slightly different perspectives on what we should expect from the changing world. So Professor Cho Yoon from Chungang University will talk about the current South Korean policy, North Korean policy of President Yoon Suk-yeol. And Professor Bronwyn Dalton, my colleague and good friend from the University of Technology, Sydney, will speak about Australian perspective on the ongoing crisis and potential remedies for that through international structures and relations with Australia and Korea, Republic of Korea, as middle powers can contribute to. And I met today first time, my honor to meet Daniel. Daniel Han, the deputy mayor from the city of Right Council Han, will speak again from the perspective of a Korean who has been living Korean national, moving to Australia, living for the last 30 years, from 1993, right, from the end of the Cold War up to now in Australia, and how Daniel sees things in perspective throughout the last 30 years. So we would, let's welcome Professor Cho to speak, to talk about his presentation, which we will not have the PowerPoint presentation, but I welcome you to open this brochure which has been prepared for us. And you will see that pages, if you speak, if you read, so perhaps you can start from page 63. And English translation of that is also available here for you. So I believe Professor Cho will speak English. In English.
Sure, yeah.
Excellent.
I hope so.
I will probably have one short comment or question, and then we will move, just following the pattern of the previous panel. Again, I will invite Roman and Daniel. Again, we will open the floor to all participants. So we'll have about 75 minutes of the session remaining. So let's move on, and let's welcome Professor Cho, who just arrived from Korea and State.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Professor Yoon Young-cho from Chungang University in South Korea. Actually, I'm teaching international politics and foreign policy. Especially, I'm interested in U.S. foreign policy to North Korea and South Korea. These days, my concern is North Korean politics to South Korea and the United States. Today, I'm very glad to speak about the North and South Korean relations, vice versa, and I'd like to talk about the North Korean politics. What I mean is what they have to deal with, why they did to South Korea. I mean North Korean foreign policy and policy to the South. So I'm dealing with the North Korean politics of Kim Jong-un, and to cope with those politics, I'm gonna talking about the Yoon Suk-yeol government's powers to the South. So actually, first of all, I'm very pleased to be here in Sydney, and on behalf of South Korea, and I'd like to thank you for all Korean Council of Unification in Sydney and the Asia Pacific regions. Today, I want to discuss the importance of strengthening the cooperation between South Korea and Australia. I believe that for Koreans, strengthening relations with a great country like Australia is very crucial for our national interest. The two countries share similar values like liberal democracy and free trade. They also have a long history and significant history of cooperation to defend against communism. So during the Korean War. So with strengthened and trustworthy relations between our two countries, we can work together for peace and stability in Asia Pacific region. These efforts will lead to contribute peaceful unification of Korea. So before moving to ROK, Australian cooperation, and North Korean relations, I'd like to address 3 points first. The first one is the current complexity and uncertainties in international politics, focusing on Asia Pacific region and the Korean Peninsula. Second one is the North Korean growing threat, their changing policy to South Korea. That's my focus. So, in addition to this threat, North Korea has recently changed its unification policy towards the South. Kim Jong-un's changing policy to the South is major security concern for the South Korean people these days. When I visited to Japan and participated in workshop in Japan, people coming to Sydney, I noticed that the primary security concern of Japan and South Korea is different. While Japan is focused on potential threat of Chinese invasion to Taiwan, South Korea is more concerned about North Korean nuclear threat as well as the recent Putin-Kim summit and their military agreements. So I hope that after this discussion, Australia will align more closely with South Korea's concerns. Third one is South Korea's policy toward the North, especially under the Yoon Suk-yeol government, which has introduced audacious initiative, emphasizing a nuclear-free North Korea and offering substantial economic assistance. Finally, I propose that for a successful South Korea policy toward the North and for the North unification, South Korean government needs to make every effort to strengthen relations with international partners like Australia. So now let's talk about the international level of political landscape, which is undergoing significant transformation. The current shifts in international relations are complex and uncertain, thus the future is hard to predict. The uncertainty and instability can lead to conflicts and wars, as we see in Ukraine and in Middle East. So I would like to say that international relations, or rather I would say international system, are currently uncertain and unstable, leading to unforeseeable future filled with a fog of wars and conflicts. So why we are facing a dangerous situation? Why are these dangerous situations happening? So I think the primary cause is recent international disorder comes from the strategic competition between the United States and China, driven by Chinese assertive rise and America's response. I think, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic has intensified the competitions. Instead of fostering cooperations among major powers, under Xi Jinping, China has pursued very aggressive policies like a Belt and Road initiative and the Chinese Dream, challenging US hegemony power. And the United States has responded with strategies such as Indo-Pacific strategies, Quad Plus, and Chip 4, aiming to balance of China's growing influence. How about Russia, taking advantage of US-China conflicts? Russia's Putin invaded Ukraine, further complicating global security and strengthening the relation between China and Russia. So this has implications for the Korean Peninsula, where we see serious confrontation of US-Japan, South Korea ties and North Korea, China, Russia alignment. What's even more concerning is that Putin's mention of possibly using nuclear weapons at the Ukraine war has lowered Kim Jong-un's threshold for using them, and that talk making South Korea as a nuclear hostage. Now let's move to Kim Jong-un's nuclear threat and the changing policy towards South Korea. As you all know that the Kim Jong-un's regime continues to develop its nuclear and missile program, making significant progress in producing various types of nuclear weapons since the failure of US-North Korea summit in 2019. According to Swedish Institute, which is called SIPRI, one of the renowned research institutes in Europe, they say that North Korea possesses around 30 to 50 nuclear warheads. And Korea Defense Institute estimated around 80 to 90 nuclear warheads. And also they agree that it estimates that in 2026, North Korea will have more than 100 warheads. As nuclear armament progressed, North Korea shifted its policy from dialogue to a more aggressive toward South Korea and United States. After announcing strength for strength strategy, which means 강대강 전략, to South Korea and United States. North Korea resumed over 40 times ICBM provocations and conducting over more than 90 times missile tests in 2022. So when Russia team provides technical assistance in return for the North Korea's military support, the completion of ICBM missile production will be a matter of time, actually. Finally, in 2023, during the Workers' Party meeting in North Korea, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, he announced that a shift to two Korea's policy, declaring that South Korea is no longer a fellow nation, but an irreconcilable enemy. Thus, North Korea has declared that South Korea is major enemy and it could be use nuclear force to dominate South Korea. During the Kim Il-sung and the Kim Jong-il era, according to the North Korean nuclear weapon program is not for the South Korea, but for the imperialist United States. But now, North Korea nuclear weapon pursued for South Korea and its military partners. So currently, North Korea plans to amend the constitution, redefining itself as an independent socialist state, giving up the One Korea policy, which emphasized their unification through Korean Fellows effort. Kim's regime has also removed unification-oriented provisions and dismantled state institutions dedicated to inter-Korean exchange program, prevented the use of kinship-related terms, and systematically removed expressions such as South Korea, North Korea, and unifications from all official publications and newspapers. So they also removed and demolished all monuments related to South Korea. So under Kim Jong-un leadership, strict law, I think Professor Lee already mentioned that, like a South Korean Cultural Rejection Act, have been enacted to prevent the spread of South Korean culture, imposing severe punishment on those who engage with South Korean media. In recent, North Korea carried out a mass public execution of about 30 middle schools North Korean students for watching South Korean TV and dramas. Since North Korea designated South Korea as a main enemy, North Korea justifies its intensive effort on nuclear program to prevent unification under South Korea's democratic order. So North Korea is now taking advantage of strategic competition between US and China, as well as Ukraine war, to strengthen its ties with China and Russia. Recent North Korea-Russian summits have promoted their relations to a comprehensive strategic partner. Usually they are just partner relationship, but they move up to the comprehensive strategic partnership, aiming to reinforce mutual military and economic support and break international isolations. So now, let's move to the Yoon government's policy toward the North under Kim Jong-un's hard policies. The vision of Yoon government is nuclear-free, peaceful, and prosperous Korean Peninsula. President Yoon, great concern is removal of Kim Jong-un's nuclear program, as he believes North Korea's nuclear development has disturbed peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula and the Asia-Pacific regions. However, the Yoon is pursuing a balanced approach, responding firmly to North Korea's provocation, while also making meaningful proposals for policy change in the North. So one of the bold approach to the North is South Korea's audacious initiative, which aims to achieve nuclear-free, peaceful, and prosperous Korean Peninsula. If North Korea responds positively to the to denuclearization, South Korea offers substantial political and economic support and cooperation. So, Yoon government approach involves three key things. The first one is firmly responding to nuclear and missile threat while keeping the door open for dialogue, implementing a bold plan to dramatically improve North Korea's living standards if it is shift to denuclearization. Second is striving for mutual prosperity on the Korean Peninsula without seeking North Korea's collapse. Third one is providing humanitarian aid without political and military considerations. So in sum, South Korea government aims to manage the situation on the Korean Peninsula by addressing North Korean military provocation firmly while pursuing various forms of inter-Korean cooperations. However, so far North Korea has not responded to the Yoon government's proposals, viewing South Korea as a clear enemy aligned with the United States in seeking North Korea's collapse. Recently, North Korea has defined South Korea as a hostile state, as I already emphasized that could potentially be destroyed by North Koreans' nuclear weapons. So lastly, let's discuss the challenge for unification and powers towards the North. Since the Yoon administration's policy, such as audacious initiative, face challenges as North Korea's hostile stance, which undermines South Korea's efforts to ease its tensions and promote dialogue, under these circumstances, it is critical to deter North Korea's military and nuclear capabilities through a strong U.S.-South Korea alliance and the continued implementation of recent agreement of Washington declarations to consolidate nuclear deterrence. Recently, however, the North Korean nuclear issue has become secondary issue compared to Middle East conflicts and the Taiwan issue in U.S. foreign policy agenda, even as nuclear program in North Korea advances. Therefore, South Korea should play a leading role in addressing the North Korean nuclear issue within U.S. government's foreign policy agenda. So it is crucial not to recognize North Korea as a de facto nuclear state and to maintain a shared goal of CVID, which means that conflict, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization with the United States. In addition to U.S.-South Korea alliance, I think it is important to work together with countries in Quad and AUKUS to help bring peace and stability in Korea. With this mutual multilateral cooperation, we can create a situation where North Korea might change its policy on nuclear weapons. So in conclusion, for Koreans, these efforts with Australian corporations are crucial for gaining international support and cooperation for peace and unification on Korean Peninsula. Okay, thank you for attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Cho. Yes, indeed, we live in the world which presents us with many challenges, and they are not only security in terms of defense, but security, energy security, food security, environmental and other security issues. And what Professor Cho presented is actually the current state of South Korean responses to these challenges. Let's now ask Dr. Dutton. Roman Dutton is going to tell us more about the attempts from the regional powers, the middle powers like Australia, to collaborate with the Republic of Korea, first of all, in order to respond to the challenges which are presented not only by immediate neighbors but also further afield. And Roman has been very well placed here in Australia for many years, participating in many committees and meetings and and I believe she's going to tell us more about the 2+2 meeting which happened in May 2024 between the Republic of Korea, Minister of Defense, and Foreign Affairs Minister, and Australian counterparts. So let's listen to Rhoda's perception of also the Australian media on how it reflects the actions of North Korea. Because Rhoda has been to South and North Korea many times, so she knows the situation on the ground there, and she teaches business here at UTS, and perhaps some economic cooperation with South, but perhaps with North Korea as well, if it changes its behavior. So, Roland, let's welcome Roland to the stage.
네, 오늘 2024년 평화통일 포럼 초대하셔서 고맙고, 그리고 한국말 다 까먹었어요. 옛날에 한국에서 사는데 한국말을 생각 안 넣었지만, 그리고 특별 인사하고 싶습니다. 특별히 to the Vice Chairperson, Ko Sang-gu, to the Consulate General of the Republic of Korea, Che Yong-jun, and to the current head of PUAC, So Jung-bae, and to the Executive Vice Chairman, who I've mentioned, Kim Kwan-yong. Also, I want to do 특별히 인사하고 싶어요. 이분이 저희 개인적으로 생활이 중요한 사람입니다. 처음에는 한 선생님이 왜 중요한 사람이는지 우리 딸하고 아들이 고등학교 선생님입니다. 오늘 I just learned this today. I said, oh, you're at Ryde Secondary School. My kids are, oh yes. So, yes, 아주 처음 좀 줄 수 있으면, yeah. If you can give my kids a really good mark, and thank you. Thank you. And of course, I also want to give a special welcome to Australia. 호주에서 화영하시는 말씀 좀 하고 싶어요. 이정훈 교수님한테서 호주에서 화영하고 싶은 말씀 외에는요, 제가 GSIS에서 거기서 연세대학에서 거기서 석사 받았습니다. 그래서 연락도 잘했습니다. 예, 연대 요고 fighting. Yes. 그래서 I love Yonsei, and I was at Yonsei University 2 weeks ago, so I'm very biased. In my 영어로 할게요. 한국말 못해서. 저기 발표 준비 안 해서 죄송하지만 그래서 아주 짧게 영어로 설명해 드릴게요. 제 생각에는. So I talk in my paper about 4 ways Australia and Korea can collaborate for peace in the Indo-Pacific region and to deal with North Korea's nuclear issue. And today I'm going to mention a 5th way, which is a new political opportunity structure, which is a political science term, but there's 2 interesting things that have happened that create a great opportunity right now for Australia, Korea collaboration. But why I am so hopeful is because the Australia-Korea relationship is at the zenith. It's the best it has ever been. Because Australia and Korea share the same value system, democratic values, respect for human rights, but they also we enjoy deep people-to-people links. Han 선생님 is a typical example. All of you, we have a fantastic, thriving Korean community, particularly in Sydney. We have a lot of exchanges, and we really understand each other. We even share the same sense of humour. You are our natural partners in Northeast Asia. So we can build on that really strong relationship to do some really radical things to promote peace in our region. The first thing, and this was celebrated, this close relationship, at the recent 2.2 meeting between the Minister for Foreign Affairs and the Minister for Defence of both countries, where Cho Tae-yul and Shin Won-sik met with Richard Marles and Foreign Affairs Minister Penny Wong. The affection and regard for each other was very strong. There is so much trust, they delivered a joint statement on how to work together for peace. But proof of the closeness of the relationship is we see Korea as our number one strategic partner in Northeast Asia, to the point where we want to have a deep cooperability in terms of defence. So Korea will be the first Asian country to secure major military contracts, already supplying infantry fighting vehicles, IFVs, but now we're in the final stages of the government announcing a contract, a multi-million-dollar contract for the purchase of frigates, for a type of ship. This will be a major deal between the two countries. So how can we keep this great momentum going? I'll say 4 and then I'm going to add 5. Number 1 is the co-production of military material. So, as I mentioned, fighting vehicles, ships, other types of military equipment, but in particular co-production of the same types of military equipment, so we have interoperability. So both the ROK, the Republic of Korea and Australia's forces can operate and create those efficiencies of each other's hardware. And there's lots of growth in this area. The second way we can deepen our collaboration is through joint military exercises. I know most of you are familiar with Team Spirit with the United States, but now we have moved to other forms of joint military operations, and I know Australia would welcome South Korea's participation in joint military operations in the South China Sea. Very controversial point, but the invitation from our government is there because we all share a need to reappraise our geopolitical position in the context of the rise of China. We share that objective. Another very important area of collaboration is to better stop the flow of funds to the North Korean regime, the flow of capital. Money through cryptocurrencies and other illegal dealings has allowed North Korea, through the sanctions, to become, I'm sorry to say, become even richer. Which leads to my 4th point, which is related. We must double our efforts to address cyber attacks from North Korea and create a safe cyber zone. That's not just defensive. In terms of the military, we also have to look not just at the hardware, but how we can use the cyber world as a form of a weapon ourselves. So both defense and offense, because the UN estimate that North Korea has stolen at least $3 billion in the last 4 years through cybercrime. I think that's underestimated. They robbed Bangladesh of about 10% of its GDP for that year. So we have to have a very coordinated approach to stemming cyber attacks. Right now, we will watch the Olympics with a great deal of trepidation to see if the North Korea attempts a cyber attack in Paris. So we must double our efforts. But the good news, to my fifth point, I think there's two great opportunities. And one is internationally, and one is about domestic politics, both in Australia and Korea. Internationally, Korea's standing and Australia's standing internationally is at a high point because of NATO. They are regular partners in NATO, and they are looking to Australian Korean leadership in the Northeast Asia area. The second is AUKUS Panel 2 discussions. Once again, Korea has a very special place at the table. Already this has delivered many benefits, particularly for Korea. Korea is a big supplier of weaponry to NATO states. And unlike members of NATO who have to donate, they make money because they're selling to Poland, selling to countries engaged in the war in Ukraine. This is a fantastic opportunity economically for Korea, but also geopolitically. And Australia's right beside Korea. So those two international developments, I think, are very significant for the way we can explore how to even be more tight in developing a strategic and coherent policy when it comes to deal with North Korea. My final point is there's two interesting things to observe about domestic Korean politics, South Korean, and domestic Australian politics. Domestic Korean politics, I am very excited to learn that in Johan, or John Linton, who I know Steve and his brother from Eugene Bell Foundation, has now become a politician and enjoys the confidence of President Yoon. He is a great advocate for how to engage at the people level and reduce the suffering of North Korean people. Because I went to South Korea when I was a high school student. 제가 한국에서 정오에 갔을 때 86년이에요. 그때는 고등학생으로 로터리 클럽 교환학생으로 갔을 때요. 그때는 한국 가족 같이 자라고 내가 한테 얼마나 친절하게 아주 딸으로 그렇게 they treated me like a daughter. Actually, the North Koreans in the villages are the same. Because Koreans are beautiful people. We must do everything to stop their suffering. And I've been to North Korea and I've seen the suffering, and it is terrible. But people like In Johan knows very practical ways to separate politics and human rights. And I am so excited about, even though his party doesn't like him sometimes, but I am very excited about his contribution to South Korean politics. The most exciting thing is in Australia. And this is a call to arms to you. I know the Australian politician, the New South Wales politician, Scott Farlow was here. I'm sorry to him, but it should not be Scott Farlow, it should be a Korean. The reason it's got to be a Korean Australian is Korean Australians are the most ethnically geo-concentrated ethnic group in Australia. Koreans live within about 40 kilometres of Strathfield Station. You have the voting power. You need Han 선생님 should not be deputy mayor. He's got to be mayor, and the member for Strathfield has got to be Korean. You're ignoring your own power. Get all the moksas, make them all get on. have a kumbaya moment. Pull together. Unity is your strength. We need a Korean in Parliament, and you can do it. The numbers make sense. I know. 정치학과니까 공부하니까. So that's a really exciting opportunity. And once we get proper senior Korean Australians in our political system, I think our relationship will know no bounds. Thank you. 감사합니다.
Thank you very much, Lauren. Well, yes, indeed, great room for cooperation between Australia and the Republic of Korea, both militarily, economically, in human rights area, people-to-people diplomacy, of course, education. So I would like to invite to the stage the Korean Australian, the future mayor of the city of Raleigh. And let's take it right through. So Dr. Han will be speaking today about the experience. His experience arrived in Australia in 1993, soon after the Cold War was supposed to be over. He was a teenager. Councillor Han has been living in Australia, in Sydney, dealing with many situations. Of course, his perspective is insider for Australia and also insider for Korea to some degree. And Daniel will be speaking about international relations, international perspective on, and its impact on Australian daily life. We all understand that sanctions against North Korea may or may not be working. And it's not only North Korea which worries Australia. It's far away, it's half a world away from Australian shores. But after the borders have opened after the COVID pandemic, so people travel and we all experience changes in our daily life. And war in Ukraine in particular makes the prices rising, makes international travel more precarious for different passport holders. And Daniel, I believe, is going to raise many questions which probably don't have answers, and I would invite everyone to think how would you answer those questions which Councillor Han will raise today, and then after his presentation we'll open, first of all we'll discuss among the panelists perhaps the questions which he's going to raise, and then we'll open the floor for the audience. Let's welcome Daniel Han.
아이고, 안녕하십니까. 네, 한정태입니다. 먼저 이 자리를 준비해 주신다고 수고하신 서정배 우리 호주 지역회의 회장님, 그리고 또 먼 데서 또 와주신 우리 수석 부회장님, 지금 이 자리는 안 계시지만 또 김관용 수석 부회장님, 그리고 또 아태의 또 우리 고상구 부회장님, 그리고 또 우리 호주 지역회의를 위해서 진짜 많은 수고를 해주신 또 전 회장님들 여기 계시는데요. 이숙진 회장님, 그리고 또 형주백 회장님, 또 우리 고동지 회장님, 전부 다 이렇게 한 가족 같이 우리 시드니랑 호주를 좀 이끌어 주셔서 너무 감사합니다. 그리고 또 이번에 부임하신 최용준 총영사님께도 감사를 드립니다. 네, 그리고 또 오늘 젊은 친구들도 많이 왔거든요. 우리 젊은 친구들을 위해서 우리 박수 한번 쳐주십시오. 우리 한인 사회에 어쩌면은 이제 미래의 일꾼들인데 이렇게 먼 길까지 와가지고 또 자리를 이렇게 하고 있어서 저도 굉장히 뿌듯하고 또 의미 있는 자리인 것 같습니다. I'm very 그리고 영어로 나머지는 할게요. Yeah, I'm very honored to be on the stage with these wonderful academics here today. I see myself as not a specialist in this area, but as a catalyst for today's discussion. From an ordinary Korean Australian's point of view about the whole issue. To introduce myself today, look, I've got a little disclaimer that I have to say here. I wear many hats. I'm a school teacher, as Bronwyn said, and I'm not here as a school teacher representing the Department of Education in New South Wales. I am a deputy mayor, but I'm not here to represent the council here. But I'm a proud member of the PUAC Australia chapter, and I'm also here as a member of Global Strategy Special Committee from PUAC to share some opinion and what I've heard from the committee launch early in May. To expand a little bit more about Bronwyn here today, because she mentioned, and we found out, oh, really, are you the mother of so-and-so? And I'm like, as a teacher, this happens so much, where you see the children and you meet the parents, and you have this quote always rings in my head: apple doesn't fall far from its tree. Because Bronwyn's children are probably the most, how do you say? They're the model global citizens of this generation. They can speak multiple languages and have a really good understanding about how the Australia and the Pacific area, or Asia Pacific, they have a really good understanding. And I used to wonder, who raises these kind of kids? And here we are, No, come on. There's not much, as teachers, we can't do much. It's mostly parenting. And can we give Bronwyn a round of applause for being such a great parent? So yes, like I said, I'm not a specialist, but I've been interested in North Korea or South Korea and the peace in the Korean Peninsula, because I came to Australia when I was 14 in 1993, and I often find myself back then when they see me, first question they ask is, "Are you Chinese?" And then, no, I'm Korean. And then, what's the next question?
North or south?
Yes. Are you from the north or south? And I'll be like, I used to get a bit offended, like, oh, if you're from the north, you probably can't come here. You won't see many North Koreans. But then, when they feel a little bit guilty about asking that question, then they move on to, oh, so what's your opinion about North Korea and South Korea? And when I was young, I had no idea. I am from the era where I was educated in the communist 공산 방공 교육 받고 그 포스터 방공 포스터 to draw like horns, like devils of the North Koreans, and with the tanks and all that. I used to draw that when I was in primary school. So I really I don't think I had a balanced view of the issue. So I always tried to have more, attention, to the issue. And probably it brought me here to apply to be a member of PUAC. And today I'm here as a panelist. I don't think I qualify, but I'm here to ask a few questions to the floor and also the panels. I always wonder, especially these days, we found ourselves watching the conflicts in Gaza and Ukraine. And these wars, when you look at them, as a Korean, we get quite nervous watching these unfold, because we are also technically at war. So these wars don't only highlight the fragile state of the world peace, but also reminds us of the interconnected nature of international security. And I think understanding of the North Korean issue within this context can be very important and it adds another layer to the global security puzzle. And I'd like to today, I think Bronwyn mentioned a little bit about AUKUS, how AUKUS Alliance talk during the Pillar 2 now involves South Korea and Japan. It's a significant development in the realm of economic and military security. But I'd like to ask questions about its impact on the delicate balance of power in East Asia. The AUKUS Alliance may introduce new dynamics in the already complex economic relationships with China. And as China remains a key economic partner for Australia and South Korea and Japan. I'm not an expert in this, but I'd like to learn more about it. I don't think we can reach a conclusion today, but I'd like us to think about it and also talk about it today. And how this shift of power, regional power structure, how can that affect the economic, is there any economic repercussions for Korea and Japan or Australia? Secondly, this could be a dumb question coming from a non-expert, and this could also be a little bit controversial. But yes, we all know that there's been sanctions for a long time against North Korea. Now, have these sanctions been effective? If we had a chance to go back, it's always good to think, hindsight. But if we had another chance, maybe 50 years ago, or before we put sanctions on, can we do things? Could we have done things differently? Is something that we can think about. And where do we go from here in the future? How do we handle these sanctions with Yoon administration? And also, lastly, what about our average Australians? How do average Australians think about this issue? Do we even care? If you're not a Korean Australian, do average Australians really care? And if not, how do we build awareness of this important and delicate situation in our region? So I want everyone to be a bit more, more interested and participate more in the panel discussion that follows on from here today. I will wrap up my speech here and we'll move on. I'll pass it on to Leonard. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Daniel. So we have three panelists who presented the perspective of the Republic of Korea government, Australian government, and the common people approach to the daily necessities which may be affected by whatever may be happening in the Indo-Pacific theater. Perhaps things which are developing in Eastern Europe may easily transgress the borders, and sooner or later we might see this situation around Taiwan will get hot, and the big question is what the US policy is going to be. Is the US going to stand up and defend the Republic of China in Taiwan or not? If they don't, for some reason, we understand that China-US politics are dependent on trade and investment and other geopolitical considerations. But if US and the US we saw in rolling out of, say, Middle East, Afghanistan, if Australian US troops are not going to be involved in direct conflict with China, US troops going to be engaged in defending Republic of Korea should North Koreans attack again, and now being emboldened by Putin's intentions to give North Korea new state-of-the-art technology for both nuclear and nuclear submarines, perhaps, for intercontinental ballistic missiles. what will be the US response to South Korea. And if it's not supporting South Korea, will the US one day support Australia? If Australia is under attack. So it opens a big can of worms and big questions which Daniel has raised and Roman has discussed and Dr. Cho proposed today to consider. I very briefly just ask each of the panelists the question, and perhaps they can give us more insights on what they have presented, and then we'll perhaps ask from the audience to give some ideas on. We have many students here today, and I agree that it's very important that this particular forum on peace in Korea is broader than just in Korea. It's Northeast Asia, it's Asia Pacific, and in the Pacific. So Dr. Cho talked about President Yoon Suk-yeol's North Korea policy, and personally I'm torn in this approach to North Korea. So Yoon Suk-yeol proposes that South Korea keeps the channel of discussion and dialogue with North Korea, but dialogue should be only about the denuclearization or democratization of North Korea. North Korea is not interested in democratization under Kim Jong-un. North Korea is not going to give up nuclear weapons. That's not in the cards. So how realistic is Yoon Suk-yeol's policy? And if it's realistic, it still has elements of sunshine policy of former President Kim Il-jung and President Dong Hyun and Moon Jae-in. So, Dr. Cho, in your opinion, how similar, how different President Yoon's North Korea policy is compared to sunshine policy? And do you think it has a risk of being as ineffective as former President Lee Myung-bak and Park Geun-hye North Korea policies were? So that's a question to Professor Cho. And also, Bronwyn talked about the Australia-Korea relations. What Korea? Republic of Korea? What about North Korea? Australia has diplomatic relations with the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Are you talking, what about Australia's, is Australia still going to maintain one Korea policy? Or is it going to one day maybe Australia will decide that we should use the opportunities which North Korean market may give Australian producers? Maybe Australia can also have a bit equally distant from Seoul and Pyongyang in order to be impartial and just a fair nation in the southern hemisphere. You know, northern hemisphere neighbors make up for this to unify one day, but why should Australia get involved in that and spoil its relations with main trading partner China and also its relations with the United States? That's a question to Bronwyn. And Daniel mentioned that he is a member of the Global Strategy Special Committee of Peaceful Unification Advisory Council. If you can give us a little bit more specific details about this committee, recent functions and plans, that would be great, particularly for our audience, and then perhaps students will also demonstrate some and give some ideas to this particular committee. So, if you don't mind, maybe a few minutes for each. Sure.
Thank you for your question, and you may be taking hours to answer the differences between two governments. Maybe you mentioned that progressive, I would say, progressive government and conservative government. So I think the similarity of both governments, they emphasize the stability and peace in Korean region. Both they exchange for those targets, of course, I'm pretty sure. And both want to achieve this in North Korea. They want. But the difference between two governments is that progressive government, they want supply, economic assistance for changes. But without serious concern over nuclear developments. But the conservative governments, they emphasize, of course, economic operations and all kind of human aid, humanitarian aid, but for the denuclearization. So denuclearization is a clear cut between two administrations, I think. So I think the conservative government, without the denuclearization, there will be no peace in Korean Peninsula, there will be no peace in the region, there will be no peace in global politics. So denuclearization is the first priority for the conservative government. So that's the clear between two governments. And the other one is earlier at the first session, human rights issues. Conservative governments, they really still care about the Korean people's human rights. But actually, progressive government, they don't care too much about human rights issues in North Korea. I think the two issues might be the clear cut between those two governments. And that might be the answer.
Perhaps Daniel has something to say?
I was just conscious of time, looking at some signals here. Maybe we've got 4 minutes. Yeah, so we'll keep maybe 1 or 2 minutes each, and then we'll go. Cool.
My answer is short. Is this one?
Yes, please.
Yeah. What should Australia's policy be to recognise North Korea because of its diplomatic relationship versus South Korea? In my opinion and my belief, Australia's policy is it loves Korean people. And the North Korean government is an enemy of the North Korean people. So why be friends with anyone that is that cruel to human beings? So it's off the table, a genuine way. Anyway, they hate us, so it's easy. I just want to mention one other thing, and it's something we haven't mentioned, and it's the T factor. You know what T stands for? Trump. Now, all bets are off. Our ambassador will immediately have to return to Australia because he has Trump and has criticised him. My view is we replace Kevin Rudd with Greg Norman. Because I'll tell you a funny story. Australian government could not contact Trump when he was president. So the Australian government had to contact Greg Norman, the golfer, to communicate with the President of the United States. So Koreans are really good at golf. So I think we together form a golfing not middle car, golfing supercar pact. And we reach Trump, make him work for collaboration.
Thank you, Roman.
Excellent. Full of ideas, Roman. Yes, I'd like to keep it short. I'll talk about a global strategy special committee that's been launched early this year in May. Consists of 100 overseas members of CUAC, specialised in science and tech, health, arts and culture, and law and politics. They've got these 100 people from around the world who got together, and I met some interesting people. And one thing that resonated with me was one of the professors at Guangzhou University conducted a survey about awareness and opinion and perspective from the Chinese university students about the reunification of Korea. Are they for it or are they against it? And how do they, what do they think about it? And guess what? They wanted Korea to be unified. And the reason being is they see economic, everyone thinks about themselves, we can see. If they think it's going to benefit them, they think it's a good thing. So it's a bit different to, I guess, Chinese government's position. The young people, the people's opinion could be different to the government's position. And that's where we thought, okay, well, we've launched a committee. It's a strategy, we're forming a global strategy. How do we do this? Well, let's start with surveying, let's start with collecting data. So we're launching a global survey in 9 different languages. It's actually happening right now from July to probably end of August. we're doing surveys all around the world about regular people, ordinary people's opinion about the Korean Peninsula. And after collecting the data, we'll probably form some sort of strategy to go about building awareness and so on. So that was that's what's happening, and I think I'm actually honoured to meet professors from different universities who will probably need your help to get this survey done.
Absolutely. Thank you, Daniel. And kudos to you and the Global Strategy Special Committee work for doing this great job. It's a wonderful opportunity to talk to lecturers and students. And let me just give an opportunity. I know it's already 10 to 6, but maybe time for one or two questions from the floor. I have one hand raised over there. Please use the microphone when you ask a question. If you want to direct it to a particular panelist, please say so.
I'm a politics student at the University of Sydney. I have a question for Professor Joe. So after Britain's visit to North Korea, there has been a large discussion on the inevitable nature of South Korea's nuclear armament. So I think at this moment there are only two realistic options to do this, which is number one, the deployment of US tactical nuclear weapons in South Korea like they did in the 1970s with shared use authority. And number two would be Japan's model of nuclear armament, which involves increasing nuclear processing capabilities and reprocessing without actual development. So this way, we don't possess the actual weapon, but we possess the technology to produce a nuclear warhead within a day. So, in your perspective, if you had to choose, which model do you think is most realistic given the current state of South Korea?
Okay, that's an interesting question.
Weapons the US should deploy for South Korea become nuclear power.
Thank you for the question. Actually, I think towards the answer is I think towards the US deployment in Korean Peninsula of nuclear weapons. That's what we need to do it because if we possess ourselves, there is a lot of problems we're facing. The first one is the norms or values of violating the international nuclear weapon issues, the NPT issue, and we have a moral preference over to North Korea. We want peace. We don't want to nuclear domino issues kind of thing. So the first one is that, and the second is if we have nuclear weapons by our own, and there are a lot of sanctions and criticism by the international societies to against North Korea. So I think having nuclear weapons through with the help of the United States might be the first option, and we prefer so far now. That's what I.
Thank you, Professor Cho. Perhaps Roland or Daniel want also to answer this question in your opinion. But it's a very scary question. Who is going to use nuclear weapons? And should the need be? It's a yes or no question. So, Roland, in your opinion, thank you for asking that. I would personally, I think that nuclear weapons has one particular value. It's a psychological weapon. North Koreans don't have how many nuclear heads North Koreans have? They have, as long as they have one, no one is going to attack North Korea or change the regime or provoke it. So, contrary to Professor Cho's opinion, I think that if South Korea goes nuclear and has one nuclear weapon, no one will dare, will never dare to use them. Russia or China will not, because it is a psychological deterrent. Deterrence will switch on, and what was working between the US and Soviet Union throughout the decades of Cold War will be just in a small scale contain potential role of nuclear spiral of confrontation in the Korean Peninsula, Northeast Asia. So it's my opinion, but I don't know. Roman, Daniel?
Well, it depends on the relationship between the US and South Korea. At the moment it's strong, but given the Trump factor, I think South Korea should control its own destiny and have access. It already has nuclear capability, but it's dependent on the US. I want Australia to be a republic, I don't like Shinjuku, I don't like colonialism of any form, and Korea and Australia suffered from colonialism, and so I'm for independence for Korea in case the next president's a bit crazy.
Well, thank you, Conrad. Daniel, last opportunity to already have 2 against 1.
I'll pass my opinion. I've got an opinion, but we'll have to sit down for a long time to talk about it. So maybe we can catch you over dinner or the drinks and we'll talk about it.
Can I just say, I don't predict nuclear, I don't predict war. There's an amazing book I recommend to you by a Russian, Alexei Yurchak. And the book is, everything was forever until it is no more. The night before the reunification of Germany, a meeting of the 20 top economists predicted reunification would take 20 years in Germany. The next day the wall fell. The North Korean people do not like their lives. They all know about South Korea. So when it happens, it will be unexpected, but for me it will not be surprising. North Koreans will want to reunify with South Korea. It won't come to war.
Thank you, Ronald. I think on this particular point, it's a good time to close the session and reach Korea peaceful unification one day. Unification should happen and should be peaceful. Thank you very much to Peaceful Unification Advisory Council, Australia chapter, for providing this opportunity to us to talk and contemplate possible scenarios, and we believe it will be peace and prosperity for Korea. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Let's put all our hands together for the insightful speeches.